The old Malthusian calculation was how fast is population growing and how fast is food production increasing.
Yeah.
The problem with the calculation was that it's
Wrong.
Yeah, it was wrong. Yes, that was the basic issue.
Other than that, it was just fine.
Yeah. Mark, hello, good morning. How are you?
Well, I mean, it's sort of a anticipatory move because, you know what, Tim? It's only 9 sleeps till load shedding.
Oh, that's great.
I can't wait.
Yes, yeah.
Back to normal.
There's some nostalgia involved here. Back to the good old days.
Yawn, switch on the lights, and they go on every single day, day after day after day. It's enough already. We've had nearly 60 days of load shedding. I mean, where's the challenge? You know, exactly. So anyway, well, you know, as we approach elections, which are 9 sleeps away,
Yes.
I was encouraged by the enthusiasm of our offshore citizens who queued for hours in London to go and vote and various other places around the world, flying the flag and holding bright flags and doing stuff. So, although I'd rather they were still here, I'm glad they're pitching up to vote. So, other than that, I'm election out. I'm all election manifestoed out. And, you know what? I think these politicians have taken a turn for the worse. It's becoming a little bit mudslinging now, a little bit vicious, a little bit mean, a little bit, it's becoming politics.
Yeah. But I mean, you know, there is a strategy behind that because somehow, apparently, as the election gets closer, people want and expect politicians to become nastier. Yeah. The closing days of the election campaign are normally the days in which you get the most virulent advertising.
Yeah.
As we saw, by the way, with DA's advert in which the flag was, burnt and then unburnt. Yeah, the election itself the result now seems more like normal.
Yeah, it does.
So the rand is strengthening and none of the crazy, outlandish, scenarios are likely, apparently, according to the people that know these things.
The last week's a bit like watching mud wrestling, It seems like a lot of fun, but I'm not sure everyone's going to emerge clean as they were before they started. So let's wait and see. Yeah, but the predictability, the certainty around the outcome is starting to narrow, and people do like certainty, offshore investors in particular. I've had enough of the election. Let's talk about something far more interesting, Tim. I was watching a program, I think it was yesterday, on education and the filters of education. Okay, and turns out that about 13% of kids that start school end up going to university, getting a university entrance matric, if you can still call it a matric.
In South Africa,
In South Africa. And the other thing is that we had a significant decline in children not at school from about, for about 10 years down to sort of 2016, 17. And that started to turn up now, and it's approaching levels 10 or 15 years ago. So the trends are not looking good. My point is this. What's going to be the solution? Because the solution is not to lower the standard, okay? The solution is to increase the product and improve the product and the teaching and all of those sort of things, which brings me, onto a general theme, which is that, we do seem to, as is the case with NHI, which obviously we should talk about, we seem to have this lowest common denominator mindset linked closely and close cousins to the play now, pay later mindset, because it's not like we don't spend money on education. So, Tim, how are we coping with all of these virtuous necessities, I might call them, which is equal opportunity for people, and affordability and standards and long-term plans? What are your thoughts on that stuff, right?
Well, I think the NHI is obviously a politically adept move, but is financially just crazy. And it's crazy really because of the principles that lie behind the idea of public policy. Because as it's a very good article by Alex van der Heever this morning, and he is the chair of Social Security Systems Admin at the Wits School of Governance. And the point that he makes is that, well, he makes several, but the point that is relevant here is that, you have to take the world as you find it, not the world as
you'd love it to be.
You want it to be, as you imagine it to be, and you have to try and fit your social policy into that framework. And if that doesn't work, then there's no chance that your social policy will ever be a success. So his analysis is that the NHI is a dream. It was never going to happen. It's not going to happen. And we are now faced with a situation in which they're going to be focusing social policy on NHI instead of focusing social policy on the things that they can fix, the things that we could do, in the meantime. So no, I don't know that answers your questions specifically, but that's an aspect.
I've heard crazy numbers basically I heard the minister about saying that something like 50% of what gets spent, sort of on health is spent on 15% of the population, and 50% is spent on 85% of the population. And if you just do the maths now, what is the target? Is the target to spend the exact same amount of money on everybody, in which case you must do the sums. It's a huge, huge number. Or do we lower the level of the water until everyone can swim because they're standing? Or do we, increase the ability to swim? Okay. I think that's a fundamental point of departure there.
Yeah. Funny Hifo actually raises this point because I've heard the statistic 1,000 times. And the idea is that, the people who are against me have no morals. I have all the morals.
Yeah.
And so then you end up making up these fictitious numbers. The number of people who are on medical aid schemes in South Africa is not 15% of the population. It's around about 30.
Yeah.
And, the people who are on it are, not the richest of the rich, the disgusting billionaires. They are, policemen and women, nurses, quite low-level state employees.
Like even journalists say. Eh? Yeah.
Sometimes even journalists are part of it. It's
there we go.
It's kind of shocking. So, it's revealing in a sense that the Minister of Education of all people doesn't know what the proportion of South Africans who are on, medical aid. I mean, it's just shocking. And here's the other thing. South Africa's medical stats are pretty bad. If you take, the international averages, but they're improving, and they're improving pretty fast. And they're improving pretty fast, not because the state system is getting better, but because more and more people are now part of the private healthcare system around the world, right? Which is something that even in the UK, there's a private aspects to the healthcare system.
Yeah, sure.
It's just all nuts.
Yeah.
It's just politics. It'll disappear after the elections. We should just relax about it.
Well, I heard outrageous estimates of somewhere between 200 billion and $1 trillion, and I heard that the way to solve it would be to take VAT to 20% or 30% increase in personal tax. Now, I'm not saying that these things shouldn't be achieved, but, like all transformation, you first of all need capital, so you need to build up the capital and then spend it, not pre-spend your wish list and then go, I'm going to further impoverish the general, now more broadly participating population in something which I'm going to have to spend my revenue on, which is coming from an ever smaller proportion of the population. So all of these dynamics, someone needs to have all of the stuff on the same page and go, okay, it doesn't add. Now, can we solve it in a longer term? The trouble is impatience. And the trouble is, of course, as you said, elections. Anyway, enough of election promises. Let's see. Let's wait. It's only 9 more sleeps.
Yes, that's right. And then we'll have our beloved load shedding back again, which is great. Yeah.
In any case, Tim, we're all getting older. So I was looking the other day at one of my favorite topics, like AI is yours.
Right.
I was looking at the composition, the age composition of the population. Okay, so in 2022, about 25% of the population was below 25 years old, and about 15% of the population above 65 worldwide, of our 8.1 something billion people. Okay. We've had a constant birth rate for goodness knows how long, which is sitting down at 2.3 or something. And if you project that forward till the sort of turn of the century, to 2100, that mix changes to the oldies being 30%. The above 65s being 30% of the population. They double.
Mark, I've got a question for you here.
The economic impact of that. Yeah.
I've got a question which relates to the economic impact.
Yeah.
Are old people actually old people at that point?
Tim, that question is so far above my IQ that I can't even put my head around it. Are old people old people? Of course they are, man. What? Hey?
No, but I mean,
you mean 60 the new 40? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. No, it is. It obviously is. We have 90-year-olds finishing marathons now. 90-year-olds.
Yeah.
It is absolutely incredible. So, the assumption is that the world will get less productive because there'll be more kind of retired people. But, only about 50% of Americans retire when they get to 65. The rest carry on,
Okay, well, that's the structural issue.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, but that's the structural issue. So now, if it is true that old is no longer old, your new hypothesis that I'm trying to understand, then, the whole retirement mindset must change, the whole pension fund industry must change, because it's okay if everyone carries on being productive, but if everyone becomes dependent at the age of 65 because they're forced to retire compulsorily, and they come home supposedly to look after the grandchildren in a world with a declining birth rate, you're going to have cluttered up houses with mouths to feed that aren't just babies, they're babies and their grannies and their great-grannies. And that just doesn't work socially, economically, physically. It doesn't work. So we have to then accommodate this demographic change with a complete mindset change. Now, the problem with filling up the top, as we can see, given the choices that America has for its next president, is there isn't space enough for the new people to come through. When you've got two 80-year-olds contesting an election and no 50-year-olds in sight, something has gone wrong.
I don't know. That's very Malthusian of you, Mark.
You are using such big words today. I swear. Well, explain. Give me the argument. I can't read.
So the old Malthusian sort of calculation was really quite a simple one, which was how fast is population growing and how fast is food production increasing.
Yeah.
The calculation was that at a certain point, we're all going to starve to death because, the food production wasn't increasing as fast as population was.
Yeah.
The problem with the calculation was that it's
wrong.
Yeah, it was wrong. Yes, that was the basic issue.
Other than that, it was just fine. We've become more efficient at producing food.
It's rather like, I remember reading somewhere that somebody, I don't know when it was, I guess the beginning of the 19th century, calculated how many horses there were in London and how much an average horse cracked per day. And then did a small calculation and discovered that in the space of, I don't know, X years, say 40 years,
we'll all be in shit,
London was going to be 10 foot under horse manure. And then, of course, what happened was the car was introduced. So instead of horse manure, we now have air manure, but, progress. It's the both.
I was watching an astonishing video of two male giraffes having the last fight between the old bull and the new bull. Right. I don't know if you ever watched giraffes fight. It's an extraordinary thing. They basically use their necks as a sort of a stick to beat each other up with their heads. I mean, it's quite a fascinating thing. And so in nature, there's a natural progression of things. We've talked about this. We are outdoing nature. Malthusian or whatever his name is aside, what would happen in a world, I know I'm going to get into trouble for this, but what would happen in a world where, let's say,
how unusual.
Let's say there was no medicine.
Right.
I mean, the mortality rate would go back down to 40 or whatever it is. I mean, is that as undesirable as the average age approaching dependency and alive but infirm? I mean, are those two not both undesirable outcomes? And how do you, in the name of science, even contemplate stopping keeping us alive forever? I'm in trouble already, Tim. I think we should delete this whole thing,
I mean, where I think this is a problem, a very immediate problem, and that is with state pension funds around the world. Because, if you were like a train driver in, I don't know, Italy or something like that, and the retirement age is 63 or 65 or whatever it is, you're not going to not retire at 65 because, you're in good health. You'll retire because you are in good health. You know what I mean? When 65 was originally proposed, which happened, I happen to know this sort of weirdly, in Germany, only around about 30% of the population ever got to 65.
Yeah.
I think it was Bismarck. It was a Bismarckian invention, state pensions. Anyway, so the private system, I think, will be flexible enough to say, okay, let's move it around a bit. We can increase the retirement age and et cetera, et cetera. But, as we've seen in France, boy, you try and move the retirement age like one iota, and there are, big protests. It's interesting.
Listen, I'm on the wrong side of this double. Okay, I'm in the sort of aging oaks, but I don't feel, I don't feel old. I feel like I'm as productive. All of those good things.
Yeah.
So it's an opportunity, I suppose, not a challenge. And of course, we can't reverse the progress of medicine and all of those good things, but we do need to anticipate its consequences.
No, that's true. Can I raise a different issue and age? And that is music and age.
Oh, yes. Have they made any music? I'm sorry, Tim, but have they made any lacquer music in the last 20 years? I mean, because I'm sorry, I still listen to the same music enthusiastically as I did a long time ago. Is it just because I'm old? What's happening in music, man?
No, well, this is the thing. We're getting more stats out of these music streaming systems. We're getting a better grip on who's listening to what music. And here's the unshocking, but true fact. Each successive generation, from baby boomers to X to millennials to Z, each generation thinks that the music when they were teenagers is the best music that was ever created.
I agree.
So as a baby boomer, you are reflecting exactly the same predilection as every successive generation.
Okay.
Only the music that you think is the best happens to be from the 1970s and maybe a little bit from the 1960s and a tiny bit from the 1980s. And that whole sort of like spectrum has moved on a decade with each generational change. It's kind of obvious, I guess, in a way, but it is shocking to me that millennials think by far the best music that was ever created was created in the 1990s. I mean, that's got to be wrong, right?
Yeah. No, I accept that we're outdated, but we don't care, by the way. Okay. So, I mean, when I sit and watch, I love music and I love music videos, and I can get lost for hours watching music videos and things of that nature. But the fact that I don't know what's her name, Taylor Swift, mega star.
Yes, that is correct.
I've never heard a song of hers, Tim. Okay. And she's a gazillionaire.
Mark, can I absolutely guarantee that you have? But you just don't recognize it as Taylor Swift.
Okay.
I
don't know it. Yeah. Okay. I mean, is that because she's singing some golden oldies to her? Who's in charge of the study of the evolution of population and society and stuff? Who's doing that stuff? Is there still a sort of a global initiative about what's happening to the human race in all of these various measurable dimensions and otherwise? Is there such a place? Is there a center of this?
I don't know. Well, I mean, you just collect all of this information and amalgamate it in your own mind and then ask AI if you need to.
Yes, of course, I've forgotten. There's my friend AI there.
Maybe we should end there before I start talking about AI again.
And me about age again. See, the thing is, I'm starting to forget what we spoke about last week, so it's getting easier and easier.
Yes.
Have a good week, people. 9 more sleeps. Think about it.
9 more sleeps. Cheers all.